So you spoke to our friend from California. Uh, what did he have to say?
He is lost in this religion stuff. He's Adventist. He believes, as you and I do, that this civilization is crumbling. Financial systems in turmoil. Resource shortages, climate change, ecological, biodiversity devastation. But he says, it's time to turn back to God. Time to turn back to Christ. And I don't know. I'm like, I just don't feel Christ. I think Judaism, Christianity, all these religions are just hoaxes, to be honest. I mean, they're stories, but they're not really real. I mean, my tendency is to go more towards something like some sort of Taoist or Buddhist belief anyway. It seems to make more sense with nature. It seems to allow for nature just to kind of evolve and move and change. I think Western religions are crap, though I'm becoming slightly more interested in some Islamic philosophy because it seems a little bit different than Judaism or Christianity, and even some strands in theological Islam. But overall, I'm moving away from religion, and our old friend is very much into it. I just think religion leaves people lost, gets people lost. I think the world's just a little bit too strange for our limited logical constructions. Not to say that they aren't useful, but we shouldn't be tied to them except for the most minimal aesthetic pleasures.
What's that?
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy some of the food, like you do, and I do, and some of the Jewish food, Jewish customs at the certain high holidays, that's okay. But to take any of the religious beliefs too seriously, it's just a method of social control. I mean, the whole Christian obsession with sex and guilt and hell, or Jewish obsession with rules that define certain groups. I mean, I think a lot of this is just, it's an anachronistic in a world where identities are too fluid and change is way too fast. I mean, most of the people who return to religion nowadays end up adopting these neo-orthodox or neo-traditionalist forms that provide a very fake enclosure, a fake sense of security. Because we're moving into a period where security is no longer can be a part of your identity. Things aren't stable anymore. A new world is opening up. It's no accident that the Mayan long count calendar is ending. They're the best calendar makers in the history of humanity. Something's up. Not to say that the end of the world's going to come, but the end of a certain era of human consciousness is certainly around the corner. In 2011, 2012, seems to be a time when a lot of things are ending. I think a lot of people sort of want this to end. Our civilization is pretty psychologically destructive and affectively hard to swallow. It's affectively impoverished. I think to go back and adopt old religious forms, and I'm mostly speaking of Christianity and to a lesser extent Judaism, is not a good thing. I think it blinds people to the new possibilities. It blinds people to
New possibilities such as what?
It's hard to say what they are. It's an attitude. You have to have an attitude where we're going to be shown new things. Because the universe is unfathomably deep. Just like Einstein said, there are two things which are infinite. The universe and human stupidity. I think it's time that we recognize that human stupidity and the universe both being unfathomably deep. Let's open up to the universe in the hopes that human stupidity doesn't swallow us up first. I'd rather be swallowed up by the universe than humanity. If we're the pinnacle of the universe, it's pretty sad. But I think if we open up to the universe will somehow sort of protect us in our unbelief in everything else we've done here.
What do you mean?
Well, I think as soon as you get locked into a belief system, if you get too locked into it, you start to filter out all of the other things which the universe could be showing you, that opens up new doors of perception, opens up new ideas. Because I think in a world where we're moving into a certain scarcity, and where the Earth is in a lot of trouble, or at least the Earth's ability to support a large number of Homo sapiens, I think adaptability is key. Relying on old traditional forms that help construct the mythologies underneath our civilizations, really a maladaptive strategy for going forward. And this is not an easy truth to take. A lot of people resist it. They resist it in some ways small, some ways large. But accepting this and trying to live with it and building a life around it, building it down to your daily routine is important. I'm not someone who's good at building daily routine. I mean, everyone who knows me knows that's probably my greatest weakness. The self-care issues, my friend Leon always says. But I think this is the summer where I really try. I mean, I've got a couple of new friends who are really devoted to seeing me do self-care. When I've done self-care, intermittently to be sure, when I've done self-care, I've been pretty good. I've been pretty good, and I want to embrace that a little bit more than I have in the past. I think it's important. If you don't take care of yourself, what else is there to take care of? I need to realize I'm just a creature. I'm not the god of the universe. I think we all do.
Wouldn't some people argue that people taking on these religious, being more religious, or taking on these religious traditions or practices helps them take care of themselves?
Yes, they do, but only insofar as these traditions are taken on very consciously and in a very limited scope. Because they provide some comfort, some sense of link to the past. I'm certainly as someone who's deep into history, I certainly see the value in that. But I guess I worry the fact that it's hard to make those things relevant in a community of people who are capable of looking forward. And I think that's one of the main issues with that. Because I think the future is going to be radically different than most of what our past would tell it to be. Or our past would indicate the future would be. For thousands of years, humanity has been able to expand and colonize across a planet with abundant resources that could feed and lead to the development of complex civilizations. Now we're in the opposite. You know, just like it says in Genesis, the earth was created for man to have dominion over it. Now, dominion over it more for stewardship than just pure profit, but I think, whatever. The earth is now going to express dominion over us, and we're going to realize that we're just a creature. And so one of our foundational myths no longer works. We're just a creature. We are not the pinnacle of creation. We are not powerful enough or wise enough to control everything here. As a species, our intelligence just is not that great. We have to learn to accept that. And so I think part of the reason you have to be very careful taking old or religious traditions is that they're built on these myths, and that they implicitly, unconsciously draw from them. And we need new stories about ourselves, because we're going to live in a century of scarcity. No longer is this the abundant planet. This is now the scoured, raped, and pillaged planet. And the planet doesn't like that too much, because the planet wants, and ecologies tend to want to keep the various species in a sort of creative tension, a sort of balance of some kind. We've been way out of balance for too long. What's that movie you like so much? Life out of balance?
The Koyaanisqatsi.
Koyaanisqatsi. We need stories that tell us about that. And our old religious traditions don't tell us, at least in the West, they don't tell us that story too clearly.
Expound.
Well, the Greeks, through the importance they place on abstract knowledge and the abstract forms, think Plato. Although Aristotle was big on balance, it came from a perspective that was very Platonic, at least originally. To the Hebraic and especially the Christian sense of time, in which we're building toward the Messiah coming, or in the Christian sense, the Messiah coming back and ending the world, puts us on a linear path forward. And when you combine this abstraction of knowledge exists in the abstract, with a linear sense of messianic time, it builds toward an end. It builds toward an end. And we've spent so much time making our world abstract. We spent so much time waiting and anticipating an end that we've essentially built into our civilization the end of the world. But the world will go on for some who survive, and that's the problem. The problem is those stories of abstract knowledge and messianic linear time, those are maladaptive for trying to survive in the world. After all, we have a responsibility to ourselves as living in this dimension. And those old stories don't help you live in a dimension where we're no longer building toward that, because we're already there. I think we need a worldview that's more based in trying to find our harmony with nature again, not our conquest over it.